You made the choice in the dark, didn't ask, didn't wait. Brought me crying into a world you decided was great. Wrapped it up in a blessing, call my chains a gift. But a life I never wanted is waiting now to live. You got the joy, you got the pride, you got someone to carry on your name. But I got the bill, I got the years, I got a sentence with no end and no claim. So what do you owe me for the life you chose, for the door you locked that nobody knows? You can't give me back what you took that night, but you owe me something for this borrowed life. What do you owe? What do you owe? I learned how to smile so you wouldn't feel bad. Learned how to be grateful for everything that I had. But gratitude is easy when the gift was asked for. You don't give my thanks for a life I never signed for. You got the love, you got the warmth, you got somebody calling you by name. But I got the debt, I got the cost, I got a world that tells me I'm the one to blame. So what do you owe me for the life you chose, for the door you locked that nobody knows? You can't give me back what you took that night, but you owe me something for this borrowed life. What do you owe? What do you owe? I'm not saying I hate you, I'm saying you chose for me. Before I had a voice, before I had a say, before I even knew what it meant to have a choice, you satisfied yourself and handed me the cost. And every year I carry it is a year of mine you spent. So what do you owe me for a will that was never mine, for a world I never entered on my own terms? For every year of silence, every year I swallowed it down. You owe me more than sorry, you owe me more than love. You owe me the truth that what you did was never for me. Ooh, what do you owe? What do you owe? You locked the door and kept the key.
Hi, everybody. So, unfortunately, I tried to do this on Saturday, but my microphone was on mute, so you guys couldn't hear anything. But I think this is actually going to be better because there were things that I didn't even think about. I think I'm going to be giving a much better lecture or speech, rant, whatever you want to call it. I have so much more to say than I even thought about on Saturday. So let me start out by talking about Proudhon. For those of you who are anarchists, or for those of you who read my book, you know that Proudhon wrote Property is Theft. And he wasn't talking about personal property, he's talking about real property. That basically, in order to survive, you need property, you need land, you need a place to raise your cattle, to grow your crops. And so the right to own property is a natural right, but the state has monopolized our property, and they have given legal title to those who don't make productive use of said property, and those are illegitimate property rights. And because they have given illegitimate property rights to these capitalists, Now you must pay just to exist. The civilized man is the only animal on the planet that has to pay just to exist. This is theft. This is a legal fiction. Having legal title to property does not make you the legitimate owner. What makes you the legitimate owner is the fact that you make productive use of the property. The workers are the one who make land profitable, who make it actually have value. So when you own legal title, when you are a capitalist, you basically get to live for free because you live off other people's labor. So I'm just summarizing Proudhon's theory on why property is theft. Now, let's talk about the definition of theft. Theft is not merely the taking of someone else's property. And its ethical, legal, and philosophical meaning. Theft is the unilateral imposition of a debt, burden, or loss of autonomy onto another person without their consent. Theft occurs when one party makes a sovereign choice that benefits themselves while forcing someone else to pay the cost. At least that's what conversion means. And theft, conversion is basically the tort version of theft. Turning someone else's existence, time, or labor into a resource for your own ends. So theft does not require malice. All that matters is they took something that did not belong to them. And so let's talk about it in the context of procreation. I'm going to explain why procreation is theft. When two people procreate, they are extracting fundamental goods from the unborn. Before they were brought into existence, they existed in the void. They did not inhabit a body. They experienced no pain. They could not die. So what did they actually steal? They stole their peace. They could not experience hunger, loneliness, illness, anxiety. They existed in perfect equilibrium. But when they procreated, they took away this equilibrium. They took away their peace, completely destroyed it and dismantled it for their own ends. Instead, they replaced this void with an endless cycle of physical and psychological needs that must be satisfied in order to mitigate your suffering. You have to constantly eat, constantly fend off boredom, occupy your mind, find things to do. Now you're in this trap. You're in a constant bubble of having to eat, having to shit, having to breathe, and do this all over again. Wash, rinse, repeat. They stole away your invulnerability. You could not be injured. You cannot experience death. They force you into a mortal body, force you to have a central nervous system which allows you to feel pain. They force you to age and decline. They force you to have to, at some point, experience death. And in the meantime, most of you will live in perpetual fear of dying. Before I continue, let me make sure that everyone can hear me, because I really regret that I got so far in that live stream and nobody can hear me. Okay. All right, so y'all can hear me. They stole your finite time and services. They put you into a world full of extraction, a lifetime of unremunerated service, slaving away for these capitalists, landlords, economic systems, just to pay for the benefit of existing, which you never consented to in the first place. And your existence was not for your benefit, it was for their benefit. It could not possibly benefit you, just like they use the non-identity excuse for procreation. Okay, we're going to flip it and reverse it. You were a non-identity. It could not benefit you because you did not exist. The only benefactors possible would be your parents. They are the sole benefactors for everything that follows. They stole your emotional labor. You have to cry. You know why babies cry? Because that's how they get their needs met, by crying. That's how parents know that you're hungry, you need to get your ass wiped, you need to be burped. And of course, you become bonded to your parents. And because of this bond, you may actually develop love for your parents. And then you spend the rest of your life burdened with this love. You didn't choose that. And I'm not saying that love is necessarily a bad thing, but love comes with loss also. Love comes with disappointment. Love comes with grief. Eventually, you're going to lose your parents. And then love also makes you feel beholden to other people's needs, which is why you may do things that may actually go against your rational self-interest because you're trying to please your loved ones. You didn't choose to love, to feel anything. It benefits them more than it benefits you. Yes, you may love them, but at the end of the day, they are the ones who created this entire predicament. This entire cycle was for their benefit, not yours. Yes, you may need them for your survival, but they created the need for your survival in the first place. That's why children cling to their parents. And this is the reason why children will continue to cling to their parents even when their parents are being abusive. They stole a legacy. They stole an identity. They put you or force you to be a member of their family, to carry on their last name, to be an instrument of their manufactured continuity. They stole your obedience. Children are to be seen, not heard. Do as I say, not as I do. You're just a child, stay in your place. They created this hierarchy where you're just their slave who just has to do what they say. Of course, they're going to say it's for your benefit because you don't know any better. But who created the child who didn't know any better? They did it for their own self-esteem, for their own egoism. So they can instruct you and guide you. That's why they'll talk about how parenting was the most rewarding thing they've ever done. It made them a better person. They self-actualized at your consent. At your expense, They stole your consent. They consented on your behalf for all the suffering that you're going to experience. They decided unilaterally that it was worth it because they got a child to raise. They got the experience of being a parent. For them, it was worth it. Whether it was worth it to you is of no moment. They didn't care. They wanted a child. They took it. They took it by force. They took it through violence. And now you're here. Now, we know, if you all listen to that debate that I had with AVG, that their objection is life is also full of joy and beauty. This is a complete deflection. The bottom line is you were never remunerated for any of the services, any of the goods, any of the benefits that you have provided to your parents and to society. The joy, the happiness, those moments are fleeting. Suffering is the baseline. It just is what it is. This is not my personal opinion. You have to constantly eat. Okay, first of all, you have to eat. And then after you eat, you got to take a shit. And then you go back to being hungry again. So it starts with a position of deprivation that must be satiated. That is the baseline. And of course, the state institutionalizes it. The state institutionalizes the theft by recognizing parental rights. Just as the state uses violence to protect the legal fiction of property, it also uses violence to protect parental rights. The state is the accomplice, which is why I had a whole chapter in my book about the state. Well, I actually have 3 chapters. What is it? 3, 4. My book is more about the state than it is parents. It's more so about how parents enslave you to the state and to capitalism. But make no mistake about it, there are a dual enslavement system: the parents and the state. The parents are the moving force that puts you into the system of enslavement. And then after that, you're just trapped. I mean, I've talked a lot about my books. So I don't really need to go on about that now. But of course, now that your parents have bred you into this system and kicked you out their house, now you're an adult and now you're a wage slave. And you're denied the right to a legal exit. So you're trapped. You can't quit. This is not a social contract because you never consented to it in the first place. You're stuck. You have no reasonable means of escape. And that is the role of the parents in the first place. In my book, I gave y'all the case law, which shows that the primary role of parents is to prepare children for their responsibilities to the state. So they're literally creating a slave for the state. And this is the only reason that they protect parental rights in the first place. Because they know what they're getting. The state is getting a slave. That's why they are motivated to protect parental rights, even at the expense of children. They're getting a tax base. They're getting subjects to oppress. They're getting a labor force. They're getting potential inmates Constant extraction. They're getting people to harass when they're trying to go to work. The road parties want to come and stick you for your paper. And this is why they subsidize the theft of procreation. This is why they get tax credits. This is why they want to try to browbeat you with the state's concerns of population decline, declining birth rates. So let's talk about the unjust enrichment, which is what I wrote about in my book. This is how you get around the non-identity problem. Because they say antinatalism is bullshit because you didn't exist. You have to exist in order to be harmed. Fine. My book, Life Abolitionism, sidesteps the non-identity problem. We're not talking about a counterfactual scenario. We're talking about a flesh and blood human being. Unjust enrichment occurs when one party receives a benefit at the direct expense of another under circumstances where it is fundamentally unfair to retain that benefit without paying for it. Procreation is the ultimate act of unjust enrichment. The pair rents, and by pair rents, I'm talking about the pair of people who rent their children because they're not paying the full price. They're basically just leasing them up until the age of 18, and then you have to pay the price yourself. It's completely front loaded where they act like they paid for it. No, you paid for a very small portion of it. You did not pay the full scope. They got their biological drive to procreate satisfied, and in return, they reaped unearned emotional labor. They extracted a legacy at somebody else's expense to satisfy their own egos. They commanded services and obedience of a dependent being to fulfill their own social and emotional needs. They were able to satisfy their own fear of mortality by creating a mini-me who would carry on their legacy. And I know they say that they sacrificed so much. No, you did not. You made an investment. It is entirely transactional. You absolutely expect to receive a return on your investment. And it is nothing compared to what the child must pay. You may have only taken care of the child up until the age of 18. They still may have 62 plus more years to live. And even while they were living under your roof, you still were not paying the full price. You were not paying them to breathe. You were not paying for them to shit and wipe their ass. You were not paying for them to sleep, to have to shower. You deserve remuneration for all of this. 80 plus years of having to shit and sleep and shower and be a wage slave. You should be getting paid for every breath that you take. You should be getting paid for the fact that your heart has to pump blood. This is unpaid labor. This is unjust enrichment. You're working just by existing. Your parents wanted you to exist. Now you have to work to satisfy what they wanted. You're working just by sitting. Just by sitting on your ass, you are working. Every time you take a breath of air, that is unpaid labor that you are entitled. Remuneration. They don't pay you for this. They don't pay you for all the labor that you have to bear just to exist. No, they unilaterally created a child. In addition to the labor of maintaining your body, you live in its capitalistic system. You have to pay just to exist. So this was not a neutral imposition. It's not like they just gave you life. No, they imposed an overwhelming burden without your damn consent. And they owe you for this shit. They absolutely do. You don't owe them shit. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings for those of you who have parents. I'm just doing the math. Because they act like you should be so damn grateful for something that they chose to do. And they have the gall to fucking disinherit you after all the shit that they put you through. This is how you know it's transactional. They have enslaved you to all this bullshit, forced you to exist for their own ends, and maybe you obey them for 80% of your life, but when their abuse became too much, you decided to go no contact, and now you get no credit for your time served. As if they could even attempt to compensate you the full value of all the labor they extracted, of all their unjust enrichment. They could never pay you for that. They could never pay you for all the suffering. They could never pay you for living, for having to die. They could never pay you for all the breaths you have to take, for all the times you have to wipe your ass. There is no way in hell they can pay you for existing. And they absolutely should try to remunerate you to the best of their ability. At the very least, they owe you a fucking inheritance. No amount of love, no amount of trust, no apologies can make you whole. They reaped all of these benefits that they did not pay for and can never pay for. This is an irreparable debt. This is the moral debt for life enslavement that I described in my book. And I know they say, like ABG said, anti-natalists are just a bunch of victims. I guess I probably should stop using the word anti-natalist because, as someone recently pointed out, life abolitionism is a little bit more precise about what represents our values and our views. Anti-natalism only addresses the person who doesn't exist. We're trying to protect those people who don't exist yet. But life abolitionism is about what happens. Well, it's that. Plus, it's about what happens after they are brought into existence. So it's much more comprehensive. So yes, they say that we're victims, and we absolutely are. If you had life imposed on you, you are the perfect victim. You did nothing to deserve it. You did nothing to suffer, to die. And contrary to those vegans, you are just as innocent as the damn animals. You didn't ask for this shit. Even if you do go vegan, you did not choose to have to consume anything. This is something that was imposed on you. Just like breathing, just like having to take a shit, you gotta eat. So if you want to address the root cause would be procreation. Don't start in the fucking middle. Get ahead of this shit. Do it in a way that is actually logically consistent. Don't do it in a way that only spares other sentient life. Do it in a way that saves those other animals and also the humans at the same time. Don't breed humans in order to be sacrificial animals to give palliative care to the animals. The humans matter too. And if you're only addressing the animals, then you're not getting the full picture. The root cause of it is the imposition of life. The way to save animals is to stop imposing life on humans in the first place. Then there is no consumption of animal products. I don't know why this shit isn't obvious, because they want to extract it. They want this cycle to continue. They're not really serious about any of it. They don't want to trace shit back to its origins. Yes, you are the perfect victim. You literally did nothing wrong to deserve any of this shit. Even the choices that you made after having life imposed on you, you didn't choose that either. You tried to make the best out of a shitty situation. You didn't get everything right. But then again, your parents also didn't teach you anything. You didn't have all the information. A lot of us have to raise ourselves. So you may be glad that you were born. That's fine. The moral debt for life enslavement still exists, regardless. You may choose to discharge that debt. It is owed to everyone who had life imposed on them. You should never feel guilty. You should never feel like you owe your parents. You should not. They owe you. They owe you for so much. You're going to have to, more than likely, you're going to have to witness them die, and you're going to live that grief for the rest of your life. On top of all of your other problems. You were held hostage. You were forced to exist against your will for other people's benefit, not yours. They'll say that suffering is what gives life's meaning. It does not. And if suffering actually does give meaning, then they should be able to tell you what the meaning of life is. None of them can tell you that. Other than something that is rooted in mysticism. They'll say it's to serve God or some other bullshit. Or the meaning of life is to figure out the meaning of life. This circular bullshit. They can never give you any objective answer. Or that you have to give your own life meaning. No, I shouldn't have to give my life meaning. I'm not the one who chose to act. The people who should know the meaning of life should be the ones who create life. Now, I know some people say that I'm being authoritarian. I'm not. I'm just talking about ethics. Do you have a right to procreate? Absolutely, you do. You have a natural right to procreate. Your body gave you the ability to produce children. That is a right that should be protected against the state. The state should not have the power to interfere with your ability to procreate. Again, it's a natural right. I'm a big proponent of natural rights. But your right to procreate says nothing about your right to impose all of these burdens, all of these responsibilities about imposing death. Your right to procreate ends with the fact that it harms the person who was born into existence. So it is a right that may be enforced against the state. To it's not a right that can be enforced against the person who is born into existence. So my right to not exist trumps your right to force me to exist. You're not entitled to a child. You're not entitled to me. You're just not. You may want a child, but you're not. I'm not your fucking slave. So if you have to go without a human being, without a human slave, and if that causes you misery, so be it. I don't consent to this bullshit. So if you have to be barren, if you have to be an old maid, a spinster, I don't give a fuck. That's your problem. You figure it out. You're not entitled to me. You're not entitled to anybody. You are not entitled to a human being to serve your own ends. Even though you have a right, it still does not make it just. You have no right to force someone else to exist for your own extraction. That is called slavery. That is called involuntary servitude. And even if you choose to exercise that right, exercising that right generates an obligation to pay for your decision to exercise that right. So you decide to procreate, fine, pay for it. Why do I have to pay the cost of your decision? Why do I have to pay to maintain a life that I never chose? You should pay the full cost, not just the cost of raising me up until the age of 18. You should pay the full cost, whether I live to be 50, whether I live to be 90, 112. You should pay the full cost. I shouldn't have to pay for shit. You made the choice, you fucking pay for it. You don't get to arbitrarily say that your responsibility stops at 18 when that's not what you set in motion. You created a full life, a life that you knew it was completely foreseeable that I was going to become an adult. You knew that I live in a capitalistic system where you have to live just to survive. And yet you took that gamble anyway. You took the risk, and now somebody else has to pay the cost. That's not how this shit works. You should have to pay the full cost. Moreover, you should be compensating me for having to shit and wipe my ass. You should be paying me for having to get bitten by mosquito bites. Get bitten by mosquitoes. For having to breathe. For having to eat, for having to piss, for all of it. Pumping blood. All this shit is unpaid labor. It's time to pay up. Completely foreseeable. They don't just create a child, they create a full human being who's going to spend most of their lives as an adult. You reaped all the benefits, but you only paid a fraction of the cost. You reaped social status and identity. You received emotional labor. You got so much out of this deal. And you did not pay for any of it. I should be paid every single time I take a breath, every time I take a shit. I'm sorry to be repetitive. But I just really want to illustrate the asymmetry of procreation, that you pay all the costs and they just basically rent you. They lease you up until the age of 18, and then you're on your own. All right, y'all. I'm trying to. I think I've already said everything that I need to say. Yes, Proudhon taught us that property is theft. Legal titles do not create legitimate property rights. Neither does, nor does the ability to procreate create legitimate parental rights. Yes, parental rights may be enforced against the state. They cannot be enforced against the person who is forced to exist. You're taking the fruit of someone else's labor for your benefit, and you did not pay them. They received no remuneration. You cannot possibly compensate someone for existing. You stole their peace, you stole their time, their services, their legacy, their obedience, and their consent. This is unjust enrichment. And there's no way to compensate someone for it. So it's just no way you can justify it. There's just no way. Um, Again, the way the moral debt for life enslavement works, everyone is owed the debt. But if you feel that you had good parents who did nurture you and prepare you for life, maybe you can forgive them, but the debt is owed nevertheless. So let me see what comments I have. Gosh, I didn't expect to have people here this morning. Okay. Oh gosh, wait a minute. What did I do with the comments? Okay, here we go. Great. I'm so glad everybody can hear me. Endless toil, exactly. Hi, Pastor D. No, I'm actually not angry. I just wanted to get this off my chest. I'm actually more passionate because I'm almost angry that I have to repeat a live stream that I did the other day, but nobody could hear me. So I really want to get this off my chest. Hi, Chickpea. There is no meaning to this existence, but let us pretend that there is. The meaning of this existence is to be a hollow shell, be used, abused a lot, and then die for nothing. And exactly, you are so right. Die for nothing, exactly. Because that is all you are here for. At the same time, you are nothing but an expendable, disposable, self-replicating machine for nature only, caring that you breed and then die. Right. Um, it's just, when I'm debating people, their arguments are so predictable, they're so repetitive, and the only way they can think that they won is by over talking me. But really, their arguments make no damn sense. They take no accountability for anything. At the end of the day, breeders are the root cause of all suffering and death. It just is what it is. You can't start in the middle of it and then talk about somebody's consumer choices when you are procreating yourself. That is the root cause of all of it. So yes, you can make more ethical consumption choices, but the root cause of it is still procreation. The meaning of life is for each individual life to create their own meaning. Exactly this same circular bullshit. I didn't choose to have to find meaning for my life. My parents should have figured that out. And they can't tell me the meaning of my life, then there is no meaning. Yeah, they do look possessed because they pretty much are. I really would have said welcome to hell, but I don't think AI would allow me to do this with a baby. So, welcome to the world. Right, and this job market is absolutely terrible, even when you do have education. And these gas prices, well, it's looking kind of iffy. Don't make any major plans. Don't try to start a business because you don't know how much it's going to cost to even have things shipped. Because they're the ones who created me. So if they created me without a purpose, then I don't understand your question. They're the ones who made the decision, and if they can't justify it, then they shouldn't have done it. I don't do anything that consequential without putting thought into it. So only a moron would do something that is of such significance and not have a reason for doing it. They do have a reason. They just don't want to be honest. They procreated because they wanted to extract. It wasn't for your benefit. I don't understand. Like, even if you were to say, "Oh, I created children to serve the Lord," which I think is a bullshit explanation, I would accept that because at least it's something. But if you're just doing it just because and you have no reason, it's just because two straight people were fucking without a condom. Yeah, that's pretty fucking stupid. Of course they do. They don't have agency. They brought me into fucking existence. Who else has agency? That makes no sense. I didn't create myself. They created me. They had complete agency. They had godlike power to create something out of nothing. It falls on them, not me. They're the ones who should have figured this shit out. I don't know why you would be letting them off the hook that easily. I really don't get it. Okay, but the state controls that. The state does not even allow you to self-actualize. The state doesn't even allow you to work in your own vocation without a damn license. The state doesn't even allow you to receive medical assistance if you don't enjoy your life. So you're trapped. So you don't control who you want to be as an individual. Society controls that. And they threw you in this fucking system. So it falls on them. All right, y'all. I got to get out of here. I don't get it. I'm trying to see it from the other side, but it just doesn't make any damn sense. Y'all have a good day. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Exactly. I think he knows that. I think everybody knows that. Again, address the root cause. Don't start in the middle. They're the ones who made the decision, so it falls on them. It does not fall on the individual.